Hello there. I am Dr. Sue Morter from Morter Institute for Bioenergetics, and this is Sophie. And Sophie is telepathic, and she's going to give us all the answers for this evening in the masterclass, which is coming up very soon. Right now she's preparing. And so if she, I'm talking about you. It's just you're cute. Okay. So, right now we're here in Indianapolis for another wonderful retreat called our certification retreat, and we are steeped in a room with people who have been studying this work for quite some time, and I'm thrilled to allow you to at least hear them. That would be you. Because they are about as juicy and enthusiastic of a crowd as you would ever hope to spend some time with. In fact, Sophie can barely take it. It's so amazing. Okay, so you go study, and we'll be ready for the master class very soon. Okay, awesome. So, we have the wonderful opportunity inside of Morter Institute and the community of the Energy Codes to come together at live events and share on a very deep level the deep interworkings of this work. And we've been just starting our retreat today in exactly that fashion, and it's such a delight. So hopefully, if you've never been to one of our live events, you'll have the opportunity to join us in some capacity at some point in time. Starting with level 1 and level 2, we have level 1s across the country, so please look at the website and see if you can find something near you that seems doable for you, because it is truly, if I might say, life-changing. Would you guys agree? Yeah. So it is such a beautiful way to spend our lives, waking up to the truth of who we are and allowing this personality that gets in our way, that thinks it has hesitancies and has needs to protect or to procrastinate or to surge forward and outrun our fears or our issues in some way. Once we start to recognize the role of all that and sit down, back down inside of ourselves, everything begins to change. The personality has less of a role and is no longer controlling us, and instead, we start to live from the soul. So the essential soulful self is what the Energy Codes is all about. It is a series of principles and practices that you can utilize as you're living your life. Not that you have to set aside time every day to cultivate a particular aspect of your being, but rather you have the opportunity to develop your soulful self as you're driving down the road, or as you're at work, or as you're on the phone with your family member that you have a challenge with, or whatever the case may be. So it's supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be fun, and life is supposed to be flowing abundantly, in fact. And so if that is not happening in your world, there's a reason for that. The number one thing that we focus on in the Energy Codes is circuit building. We're building the circuitry to perceive a greater sense of reality than the one that we could see before. And so we're learning how to take our attention to the body when we have a knot in our stomach or a lump in our throat or whatever reaction we may be having to some situation in life. And we're learning how to work intimately with the mind and the body and the breath together to build a pathway for energy to flow where perhaps it was skipping over before based upon past experiences, old hurts, old issues, or limiting beliefs that we carry around. So we're here to work underneath the level of the thinking mind, underneath the level of the controls that our limiting beliefs have on us, and work with the raw energy of who we really are. You see, everything in the universe is energy, and including you. And so if we are able to masterfully manage the energy of our lives, we start to become masterful of the life experience. I oftentimes tell people in interviews or in courses that I'm teaching that if something isn't happening in your life, it's because energy isn't flowing through your system the way that it's supposed to be. So if you feel a limitation, you can't find the job that you like, or don't feel that you're able to express yourself in the world, or relationships seem to fall apart or dwindle away or never really establish themselves, or you have some pain pattern in your body that just doesn't seem to be relieving itself and healing in some fashion, or litany of other ways that it might express. It has to do with the fact that energy isn't flowing freely and robustly through you the way that it's supposed to be. So we come together at the level 1 of the Energy Codes coursework, and we learn how to start doing that. And we start to recognize that there's an entire universe of a reality that we had no idea about who we are in it and what our role is as a creator of our life experience. It's much more than you just picking yourself up by the bootstraps and deciding it's time to buck up and get out there and make life happen. It's not like that. It's about catching a wave of grace that's trying to flow through your life. And once you learn how to catch that wave, the wave carries you into the most full expression of your life purpose that you could possibly imagine. This is certainly what's been happening in my life and is what is happening in the lives of the people in the coursework. And so this group of people is gathered together to learn how to not only do that for themselves, but how to teach other people to do the same thing. So it's a rich and lovely experience that I love having with people who are devoted to the yes in their lives and really digging into understanding what we can do as a community to serve the world. You might be aware that I am holding a book training in the 1st of March that is going to do an introductory level of teaching people how to teach this work as well. The registration is just closed on that, but you could certainly get on a waiting list if you have interest in learning how to do that. And it all has to do with a book that I'm launching March 19th. So the book is called The Energy Codes, and you can pre-order it now, but we'll also be sending out some information about how you can buy 2 or 1 or 3 or 10 books and get different bonuses and gifts alongside of that purchase if you're interested in that. And just know that there is a tremendous amount of upswelling of interest and activity and excitement, enthusiasm around the launching of this book. It's been a lifetime, I guess I should say lifetimes of work on my part to put it together, and a definite task of love in the last 3 years to bring it into form. So look for that March 19th. You can go to drsuemorter.com, drsuemorter.com/order the energy codes if you'd like to see something about digging into that sooner rather than later. So welcome to the short answer. And I want to speak to you about some specific things that we've been talking about here today. So we were talking about what it is that happens when we surrender in life. What does it mean for the ego or for the mind to surrender? And how do we tell the difference between surrender and really just being tired, just exhausted? And so there's a very important distinction, and it has to do with the activity of your conscious mind. The activity of your conscious mind is typically steeped in protection and performance and making sure that we make a way for ourselves or that we belong or that we fit in or that we are loved, etc. And let me just back up for a moment and tell you how that begins to get started. When we land here, we kind of splat. We kind of disperse. We don't really know what we're doing, and we're kind of like, whoa, what was that just happened? And we immediately turn our attention externally to see what just happened and be prepared for it in case it happens again. And so our senses are externally oriented, and then we begin to need the external world to give us feedback as to our level of okayness, our level of belongingness, giving us feedback constantly about if we're a good person or not, if we're approved of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what ends up happening is we are externally oriented and we end up with this giant void inside. So then we continue down the path, living life the way that we think we're supposed to. We establish relationships, we choose careers, we do all these things that we do to fit in, to belong, to have the life that we think we're supposed to have. And we get down the road a little while later and we start to recognize that we don't feel so fulfilled. It doesn't feel so good. Maybe our physical health declines or our mental, emotional states start to decline. But all in all, what's going on is we're not feeding the soul. We're feeding the mind. We're living attached to the mind. In fact, we even become identified as the mind. We think it's who we are. And the mind goes like a roller coaster, believing this today and that tomorrow and this yesterday and this on the next day. And the next thing you know, we don't know up from down, and we're constantly afraid that the roller coaster is going to take another dive any moment. All of this sets up a deep sense of fear, which ultimately impacts your adrenal glands, impacts your thyroid, and the next thing you know, you're exhausted. So this kind of brings us up to the present moment. What is the difference between surrender and exhaustion or defeat or apathy, etc.? There is a similar sensation in the body in that, I just don't care to think about that right now. However, a surrender is a conscious choice to let go of the thinking mind and its tendency to write stories and fill in the blanks about people's intentions, about the probability of your outcome being in your favor, about the idea of whether or not you're a good person or they're a good person or this is ever going to work or that should happen or shouldn't have happened. All that stuff that we spend time chewing on in a surrender becomes uninteresting to us. We're just not interested in going there because we know that it always lands us in the same deep sensation of emptiness, of questioning, who am I, what's the point of life, what should I do next, and what is my value? So story writing leads to that, an emptiness at the core of our being. Because we're living in our heads, we're not feeding the core. So a surrender is saying, not worth it. I don't really want to write the story. I don't want to predict or project what someone else's intentions are. Why would I even bother? Because as we have found out, and you guys have probably had experiences of this as well, that we write the perfect story and then we get down the road only to realize that something entirely different was going on all along. We project a meaning into what someone said or did, and then 4 or 5 years go by, and the next thing you know, we are in front of these people again. We finally muster up the courage to ask them about it, and their response is, "What? I had no idea that you felt that way. I had no idea that that impacted you that way. I haven't even been thinking like that since that day. Not one time has it crossed my mind." And yet, conversely, what we were doing all those years was mulling it over and chewing about it and talking to our dearest friends about it and coming to a conclusion and even trying to heal ourselves in the face of it, ironically. So it all serves, but it's very exhausting. When all the while we could actually just not write the story in the first place and trust that the universe is delivering exactly what I need to have be delivered in any given moment in time, and that any amount of thinking about it is actually just kind of a waste of my time and energy, waste of my resources. So, what is exhaustion? Exhaustion is continuing down that road, continuing to write stories and project them onto other people and places as if you think you know. And the problem is, you might be right. I know that I was really good at story writing, and so I was so good at it, I got positive feedback about my ability to write stories, so I just wrote more of them to get more positive feedback. But at the end of the day, you're still left empty. You're still left wondering, is this all there is? Really? Is this it? So I'm good at what I do, but who cares if I'm not happy, if I'm not fulfilled, if I'm not healing, if I'm not experiencing my wholeness? So today in this moment, I'd like for us to evaluate, when I am no longer writing stories, is it because I've made a conscious choice that there's a different part of me I'd rather cultivate? And do I know how to cultivate that different part of me? Because surrender is easier when the soulful self is robust in your life. It's not so easy when it's been squelched so long that it's just this small, tiny voice way in the background that every once in a while you get a glimpse of. But the mind has a really hard time of letting go of its driving tendency if it doesn't have anybody else to count on. So what we do in the energy codes is develop this robust sense of self at the soulful level. The essential, authentic self level gets our attention, and we breathe life into it with the different practices that we learn. And in the midst of that, when it comes time to contemplate surrendering this thinking, story writing, believing mind, I have something to fall back on that I can immediately feel. It gives me a sense of self. So I'm comfortable enough that I don't have to write the stories. That's a different thing than continuing to try and just get exhausted and drop in fatigue. So it becomes an important distinction in our lives. And a couple of clues that I can give you is that when you're truly making a choice, a conscious choice to surrender, there's an energetic that happens here in this effervescent piece of you, in the center of your brain and in your throat and in your heart. You feel this like surrendering, this opening, literally, that happens in your physiology when you're consciously concentrating on an intentional surrender. Versus if you're finding that you're not writing the stories and that you're not engaging in all that stuff because you just don't want to anymore. It just doesn't feel good. Right down in here, in this gut, in this personal power place of the third chakra and this love space of the heart, there's a sinking and a deep heaviness, even though you might confuse that with a warming, settling down sensation. But if it's down here, when you're contemplating surrender, the chances are you're not in surrender, you're in defeat. And if you're in defeat, there's a general heaviness and a pessimism about your thinking about yourself. There is this idea that there's something wrong or something missing deep in the background. Even though we say we're surrendering, if we're just exhausted in defeat, it comes with a general disposition that I must be doing something wrong or something is missing. There must be something that I'm not doing right. And when we start then, on top of everything, thinking thoughts like that, it further suppresses the soulful self deep into the core, into the recesses of your being, almost seemingly never to be found again unless something shifts. Those shifts are exactly what we're focused on in the energy codes, is learning how to open which door first to allow this soulful, essential, true, authentic self to rise again and have the life that it came here to have. Conversely, when you are in surrender, you are in this kind of a disposition and a spirit. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't wait. I don't have any idea what I'm doing, but I feel so happy on the way. It's this idea that there's a grand adventure in front of me. There's an opening of possibility that's pulling me through a threshold, not just stopping me and in my tracks kind of thing. It's an openness and an availability, this surrender. This surrender comes with tears sometimes of joy or tears of just presence. And we might not be able to attach them to anything, but the background is that they have this sense of possibility and hope inside. Even though it's a surrender and we're not driving the bus in this moment, we're just taking our hands off the wheel and saying, okay, trusted relationship with the universe. I'm not going to get in the way. I know that the only thing that's happening here is a great unfoldment of my full potential. And if I get my mind out of the way, my personality out of the way, I finally get to have the life that I came here to have. So the energy codes are about establishing circuitry to make this distinction easy and to make it possible for us to step into the front side of the model, which is this conscious, intentional surrender to the greater purpose of who I am expressing here fully. So hopefully that will be a helpful tip for you to recognize. When you focus on surrender, do you feel a dropping down, a settling? Yes, but is there a heaviness? And is there a fear in the background here with a voice saying, not me, probably not for me, I don't know, just going to see what happens. What else can I do? I'm only human. Those kinds of statements are very limited expressions of the true soulful self. If the surrender is accompanied with ideas like, let's see, can't wait, I have no idea, but I'm enjoying the process. I'm in the grand adventure. Those kinds of possibilities and potentiality are always accompanying a true conscious and intentional surrender. Even if both exist, this one cannot go without a role in your life if you truly want to step through this threshold and into the life of the soulful self. So hopefully this is helpful for you. It's a not so short answer, but for some reason, it's what needed to be delivered tonight. So if you're a member, a gold member of our community, you can, of course, click on the button and join us for the masterclass. If you're not a member already and you're just joining us for the first time, please feel free to click onto the button on your page right now and get connected in and join us for the masterclass, where we offer an answer in an interconnected, integrative fashion to many different questions that are coming from a variety of directions about life, and we tie them together for you in the present moment to show you that there is only one thing happening here. It is you, it is good, and it is based in love. So hopefully we'll see you there. Much love to you all in the meantime. Blessings, and we'll see you next time. Namaste.